Go live.
I say that all the
Hello,
time.
everyone. Yet another episode of Badass Bytes. My name is Parisa Banya. Thank you so much for joining us today live. And if you're watching the recording later on, either on LinkedIn or my Sixth Sense Strategy YouTube channel or on the Facebook, where a lot of the cool kids used to hang out. They don't always quite hang. They're now more on TikTok than they are anywhere else. But however it is that you're experiencing this, welcome, and so happy to have you here. Before we kind of dive into today's topic, and I'm so excited that my awesome friend Scott has joined us today, I want to remind everyone about why it is that I started this LinkedIn Live called Badass Bytes. I have an unabiding love for modern badasses. How do I define them? They are people that go 85 miles an hour in a 45 mile an hour zone, but they don't always check to see if their people are strapped in for the ride, let alone interested in going in that destination, to that destination. They have these outsized goals. They have outsized impact they could have on all of us. They have audacious visions, but a lot of times they end up getting in their own way. And so these Badass Bites sessions are rather like love notes, live love notes to badasses. I see you, I enjoy you. I have a tremendous amount of fun with you. So I have written a post about what I think are the 14 traits of modern badasses. And if you're curious to find that, where that post is, go to this bit.ly/badass traits and you'll see the 14 traits there. Today, we're going to be talking about no crying in baseball. And my friend Scott is an awesome person to have this conversation with. But before we get all the way into no crying in baseball, Scott, welcome. Tell all of our friends, new and not so new, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'll give you the high-level overview spiel and then a couple fun tidbits. So I'm a people strategist, leadership coach, and change and transformation consultant. So my consulting work actually primarily focuses on supporting clients to create people-focused cultures and a great employee experience. I'm all about people, happy people at work. And I believe that besides that they're the greatest asset to any organization, happy employees make for happy customers too. Right. On the coaching side of my work, which is a little bit different than the consulting side, that focuses on increasing self-awareness and identifying patterns, ways to shift perception and change behaviors so leaders can overcome obstacles and accelerate their performance. So the rest of the spiel I will hold back on, no need for degrees or anything, but the fun part that I will add is I do have a direct yet empathetic, very authentic style. That's been feedback that I have given, or have been given rather. My clients have called me the system viewer, the boat rocker, the real deal, things of that nature as well. So I'm very interested in having a conversation with you on this topic, because this is one that I deal with not just with my clients, but that I have dealt with myself, both in leadership positions before I had my own business, and still to this day as well a little bit. Yeah.
I love that. And what I'm going to do is share with everyone what our immediate topic is for today, because I think I know that your ability to speak truth to power and your ability to say things as they are, keeping it real, which is another badass trait. No crying in baseball is kind of a thing. So here's how it is I've defined it in that blog post that I shared with everyone. It's an awesome quote from an entertaining movie, and it applies to modern badasses because they face adversity head on. Sure, badasses can get frustrated, but they've never counted themselves out. They have a ton of grit. So one of the things that I want to point out here is I twitch every time I see a post about being resilient. Resilient to me is like keeping the lights on in the morning. So it's like resilient and. So, Scott, tell me a little bit about your angle on no crying in baseball and why this resonates so strongly for you.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll take the latter one for you first. I mean, so for me personally, the authenticity piece I mentioned earlier. So I grew up with a learning disability, two of them, ADD being one of them. Square peg, round hole, pick last for gym class, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And once I realized what that was and, was able to figure out ways to, work with that, I started thinking, and this is, as I was getting older, I started thinking about how that actually impacted me in certain decisions in my life, or not making certain decisions because of the fear of adversity, or not being sure how to overcome that. Also a member of the LGBTQ plus community, so deal with adversity daily there as well.
Sure.
And that's been something that has just stuck with me. And I have always been the type, to the way that you describe it, Bruce, I've always been the type to, keep on going. There's another quote I like about adversity from Winston Churchill. If you're going through hell, keep on going. And that's just been my mentality from growing up the way that I did. And, now in my practice as well, it's something that I run into quite frequently with badass leaders, because these are folks, the ones that I would describe that I deal with in that category. These are folks that, no crying in baseball, yes, but sometimes they don't know what it looks like or where to start in regards to conquering the adversity. So it's not the fact that they have the lack of the desire necessarily to do it, but it's putting that plan in place, identifying what those areas are that they want to actually overcome, and then off they can go. Some get frozen a little bit as well. Sometimes I don't know if you found that as well when you work with them, but overall, those are not the type of people that don't want to do something, I find.
Right.
It's just where to start and how to do it.
Yeah, there's a bias for action there. How it shows up for me in my life is I need to have that. I need the frustration. I need the experience of the frustration and the it's not anger, it's the feeling thwarted. Maybe that's the best word for it. That something has thwarted me or something is blocking me. And the frustration or the experience of that frustration is like my ignition switch to get very creative and go into action. So I actually lean into the feeling of the frustration and the feeling that some outside thing or person is trying to block me, for me to say, what's the opportunity here? And then like chase after it. I don't know if that's been your experience or the experience for your clients as well.
I mean, for me, yes, that's been my experience to an extent too. I get to this point where, and it often comes from a point of frustration. So I'm like, nothing's going to keep me down. Nothing's going to stop me from getting to where I want to go or get in my way. So let's figure out a way to conquer this head on, and just go for it and do it. One of the things I found with that, and I'd be curious your perspective on this too. One of the things I found with that is sometimes I run a little full steam ahead and I don't necessarily stop to like look at the entire big picture of how trying to conquer adversity or overcome an obstacle head on may have additional impacts either to me or to others in the workplace or peers or things of that nature. Yeah,
that environmental awareness thing is a thing.
Yep.
Right. So here we are overcoming adversity. It's not like we're all action without strategic thought, but if we gave ourselves permission to look out while we're looking forward, how much more impactful could we be? And so the no crying in baseball is a gift as well. It both things can be true. So like it's a gift, but then also that is an excellent way to get in your own way at the same time. And being aware of yourself in that moment takes some practice. Some people are just born with it. Other people, it's like developing a muscle. I wish for me that I had the environmental awareness that when I saw something and I was moving fast for the conditions, that if I had known my coach 20 years ago when he says slow down to speed up, if I had just gone 5 miles slower to enroll and engage people, then how much more could you accomplish and still being true to the no crying in baseball?
Yep. Yep. And that resonates with me. And I'm laughing a little bit too, because, in the early days of my career, I worked for a big, large firm that had a lot of type A people, so everybody was, and I had been told several times, slow your roll, slow your roll, slow your roll. And I said, I'm like, why? Like,
yeah, this is why you hired me. Right, why slow my roll?
Yeah. And it's interesting because when it's something you just mentioned too, when people will say that from the perspective of bringing others along with you.
Yeah.
Because sometimes overcoming adversity is a larger adversity than just personal, right? So it takes a village, so to speak. There is a truth to that, which is you have to bring other people along with you, and you need to kind of slow your roll to do that a bit, right? But then there's some people that's going to be left behind.
Right.
So how effective can you be in overcoming your own adversity and overcoming obstacles, if you're waiting for everyone else to come along? And it's not a disrespect. It's the fact that some people, managers, leaders, whatever, they're just not ready yet.
Right.
They're just not ready yet. And that's okay.
That's a very interesting point. That it's very much in alignment with no crying in baseball, which of course is why you brought it up. Duh.
I try and stay on track. I control that ADD these days a little better. Yeah.
But it's this. It's when we say no crying in baseball, it also reflects of. This is the state of the state. Like I wish conditions were different. I wish variables were different. I wish resources were infinite. But to the extent that things are not different, and to the extent that resources are finite, what do I choose to do in this moment? And it's not to say that we can't be human and grieve or be frustrated or be upset when stuff happens. We are not robots. And I am not going to encourage people to believe that that's what you and I are saying. It is possible to experience frustration and say at the same time, there is no crying in baseball. What do I choose to do in this moment? What resources do I call on? How do I create opportunity out of something that appears to be nothing on paper?
Or overwhelming.
Overwhelming, 100%. You had shared, and I'm going to turn myself into a liar. I told you that I was going to let you bring up Lou Holtz, but now I want to bring up this Lou Holtz quote that you shared with me, because it feels like it fits in this moment. So share with me why it is that this resonates with you as much as it does.
Sure. Well, Big Ten football fan, first and foremost. But second of all, from my perspective too, anything worthwhile. I used to hate that when people used to say that to me, by the way, particularly when I was a kid. But experience, anything worthwhile is going to take effort, right? It's not going to be easy. It'd be nice if it was, and I shouldn't say not going to, because for some people it's a little easier than others, right?
Right.
But to actually really overcome, right? And to really actually push through to get to what you may not even see as worthwhile on the other side till you actually get there, but to keep going and to get to that point and to overcome that adversity, is not only something that I feel I've done and I work with clients to do as well, but that's where the real learning is. That's where the real awareness is. And that's to Lou Holtz too. That's where the real winning is, being willing to continue to push through, and just get to the other side. And I think, for me, I know, that's something that's very important to me in that regard. While we're on sports too, I use sports quotes a lot. Michael Jordan said, something along the lines of, when you hit a wall, figure out a way to climb over it or go through it, something along those lines.
Yeah.
And it's very similar too, so that's where it really comes in for me, is you're going to encounter obstacles.
Right.
We're all going to hit adversity, but you've just got to keep going, and you've got to come out on the other side of it, whatever that may look like for you,
Right.
And that's where the learning is, and that's where the winning is.
Yeah, and the other thing is, worthwhile is in the eye of the beholder, right? So
Yes,
let me just bring up that Lou Holtz quote again. So
very much.
show me someone who has done something worthwhile. It's not that there is a universally agreed on definition of what worthwhile is when it comes to someone's accomplishments. And one of the things I'm very sensitive to is there is small W worthwhile and big W worthwhile.
I like
and
that.
We make the mistake of giving too much value to the big W worthwhile without recognizing that there were these series of events, small W worthwhile, that made the big W worthwhile possible. And so the act of taking an action, let's say after yet another sports analogy, after coming off of the sidelines for so long, the act of taking an action as opposed to letting the world pass you by is something worthwhile. That you overcame the fear, you summoned courage, you gave yourself permission to try. That is something that that we don't celebrate quite often enough. So there's that bit of clarity in there is important too, that there's no crying in baseball doesn't have to be the most ginormous thing ever. There are a series of things that you can do that if you experience frustration or there's a setback or whatever it is, big S setback, small S setback, the act of moving through it and finding opportunity is what defines no crying in baseball.
And I like that, Pressa, and I think that's a very good distinction too, with the small W and the big W, because I mean, personally, I've lived it, but I've run into it in my work as well, which is, when we tend to get so upset that we haven't achieved a big goal, even though we were willing to push to overcome the obstacle, willing to push through adversity, we may not hit the big goal, and then we beat ourselves up and we get so upset over it and we call ourselves failures and we have a downward spiral and, it's a bad spin and all of that other stuff. But yet, if you take that step back, how many of the little W's did you actually overcome on the way to trying to overcome or get past the big one, right? And I think those need to be acknowledged as well. I think that's a very important point.
Yeah, 100%. So my buddy Brandon said tenacity is great, but also being able to know when hard is actually self-sabotage, self-inflicted, because we think that success can only come from hardship. So we unknowingly create it. Yeah, that is that's an excellent point, Brandon. And sometimes there is manufactured adversity. Sometimes that's for attention seeking. Sometimes it is to avoid what the larger issue is at hand. And so Brandon's point is exactly right. Coming back to self-awareness of, in that moment, what is true, what appears to be true versus what actually is the truth. There are some things that are hard because we choose to make them so.
Yes.
There are some things that are hard because they are objectively hard, and having the honesty to speak truth to power to ourselves, let alone anybody else, is kind of what the distinction is there. I don't know what you'd say to Brandon's comment.
No, I think that's a good one from Brandon, actually. And the point that you pulled too about the fact that there's manufactured. We do that to ourselves quite often as humans.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then we can get sucked into
Guilty.
it. Yeah, me too. And that's where the awareness piece comes in when we work with our clients around raising the awareness, right? But I think that is a very important point too, because if we don't work to distinguish manufactured from real, so to speak, it's going to be all that much harder to overcome or get through, or however you look at it.
Yeah, 100%. So we are about to wrap up. So Scott, give us your final thought on no crying in baseball. Share with us more of your gold, and I'll also share, as you're doing this, I'll share with people how it is they can contact you.
Sure, thank you. Being my personal perspective, I love the analogy, I love the movie, but my personal perspective on application no crying in baseball is we're all going to face adversity in life. We're lying to ourselves if we say we're not, right? We're all going to run into obstacles in our life. We're lying to ourselves if we say we're not. So it's very important to take that step back and to say, okay, look, I have two choices. I can deal with this, or I can bury my head in the sand, right? What are the consequences if I do the latter, And it takes time and it takes effort, but I think it's a very important, and I know for me personally, it's a very important mental shift to make, to be able to look at situations from the perspective of, yeah, this may suck, but you know what? I'm going to figure out a way to overcome this. And if that means that I have to enlist, support to be able to do that, to find whatever that support looks like, so be it, whether it be personal or professional, but put that plan in place, get the support if it's needed, and either climb over the wall, go through the wall, but, definitely, and tears, I will say to the quote too, tears happen, so it's okay. No crying in baseball aside. Right. But, I'll put it this way and close. My grandfather, who passed at 102, always said, always had, the mentality of exactly that quote. He had businesses his entire life up until his 80s when he finally retired, and he hit plenty of adversity. And he had that great generation to no real patience, even with his family, for whining and crying, and it was not that he wouldn't be supportive, but he always used to say, okay, you give yourself the time needed, whether it be an hour or a day, then you pick yourself up and you keep on going. And that's something that kind of stuck with me, that resonates with this as well. Overcome it.
I love it. And it really, I love that you shared that story about your grandfather, because it really epitomizes the question, what is the opportunity here? Your grandfather wasn't saying, quit your bitching. No. What he really was saying was, you're allowed to grieve, and please ask yourself, what's next?
Exactly.
What is available to me in this moment? That is that desire to not only thrive but to create is really powerful and inspiring. So this was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If people would like to see past Badass Bytes sessions, you can go to my website, www.sixthsensestrategy.com, or you can find the Sixth Sense Strategy YouTube channel. That's also where you can find the blog post for the 14 traits of the badass, but you can also navigate to that there. And Scott, you are amazing. I so enjoyed this. Thank you so much for your continued friendship, and can't wait to see how and where it is we might be able to collaborate together in the future. I'm looking forward to it.
Likewise. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.